Hi, I'm Dave Barklow, pastor at Fort Walton Beach First United Methodist. Welcome to the Pastor's Study, our daily devotional to help us focus our mind on the things of God. We are reflecting together on the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapters 5, 6, and 7. And today we begin the last chapter, chapter 7 of the sermon. And we're going to see it through. We won't finish it this week. It'll be next week before we get done. But there's just some wonderful things in the sermon. So Dietrich Bonhoeffer writes about the Sermon on the Mount that chapter 5, the first part of the sermon, describes the extraordinary character of being a disciple of Jesus. You remember the Beatitudes, for instance, at the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount in chapter 5. Then chapter 6 displays the simple and hidden character of the life to which the disciples are called. So the first chapter is about character, and the 6th is about the life that the disciples are called to live. And here in chapter 7, you start to get a sense of how a disciple is supposed to relate to the rest of the world. So in chapter 7, verses 1 through, I'd like to read verses 1 through 5 to you. Jesus says, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the same measure you use it, it will measure you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, 'Let me take a speck out of your eye,' when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the plank out of your own eye, then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." So here, Jesus begins talking about how we're supposed to relate to others. And the first thing he says is, it's not your job to judge. Jesus is the one who is judged. God is the one who is judged. That's not our job. And too often when we judge, we can't even see clearly, right? Our own sin, our own imperfections are like a log in our eye that gets in the way, and we can't even see well to be able to judge other people for sure. Jesus says here that to become a disciple is to learn to see and accept the world as God's world. We're not called to be God, but rather we are called to learn to be a creature of God. That's from Stanley Hauerwas's commentary on Matthew. So we're not called to be God. To live into Jesus' teachings, to be the disciple that Jesus calls us to be, is to recognize that we are not God, but whether we are creatures created by God. And so we relate to each other horizontally, not vertically. We do not judge others, rather we love others. And we trust that God, the ultimate judge, will take care of things the way that they need to be taken care of. That our job is simply to try and remove the plank from our own eye so that we can see clearly. Perhaps God will use us to help our brothers and sisters, but not with a spirit of judging, for sure. There's some great things in this chapter, friends. I hope you'll continue to join me this week and next week as we finish up the Sermon on the Mount. Remember, I love you. Take care of yourselves and shine the light of Christ.